I'm very happy to introduce Doug Anderson, who's a good friend of ours. Doug is a very well-known poet. How many books? 3 books?
5.
5 books. Okay, yeah. 5 books. A memoir and several volumes of poetry. Some of his work was inspired by his time as a combat medic in Vietnam, and some just by life. He's a wonderful writer, and I'm really pleased that he's here. So, Doug Anderson.
All right, thank you. I'm going to read a tribute to Miles Davis, and in particular the album Kind of Blue, which I think is one of the perfect jazz albums. Kind of Blue. Gold smelt rushing downstream, setting fire to the low-hanging trees. A whorl of hell-heaven heat carves mine glyphs in rock all the way down. Black hands fanning the keys and the bright ground of the horn. A hot braid of brass, train, gnat, cannonball, and chamber's heartbeat. Scatter of bones from Evans and Jimmy Cobb, steady on, dropping coins in the love hat of the beggar, gimme more of that so I can live. And so it goes with Bach, Schubert, Mahler, all of them, verily, saying there is a way out of the lopsided lobe limp of the world in its pit-bound course. All you have to do is fly your kite in a storm. Poetry reading. Okay. He looks like a bored child in church, longing to range outside in the meadow, in the stream, anywhere but here at this poetry reading to which his wife has flogged him. Mine still raw from the board meeting, the backstabbing, the intrigue, the affair gone wrong sitting across the table by the coffee urn. And now here he is among people who think this stuff is manna from heaven. If I could only, he thinks, sleep with my eyes open, smile in all the right places, if only someone would pull the fire alarm. And so he slumps in his chair and inhales the several perfumes of the tribe. But one line, somewhere in the middle of the first poem, has him sitting up, his spine infused with light. She said, finally we are together in the departure lounge, sorting through our things, wondering what to take into the dark, and all our nakedness comes back to us whole, and all we have loved spills out of the baggage at our feet. Waiting for the marriage counselor.
Oh dear.
The skeletal bride and groom in the little glass box, the sugar skulls. Let us love one another and not wake the graveyard with our bickering. How we make war on our lives, as if we deserve more than a gleam of light caught in the fall from womb to grave, scrabbling all the way for our portion of the longing. That night in the desert, reaching up to pick the cold fruit of the sky, the flesh tangle of our loving that would look on film so slapstick, and yet for us was that one pair of angels who in the great expulsion flew up above heaven instead. Help me up the hill, and yes, you will need me too, and blessedly let us shut up and love the imperfection of our ripening past sell-by. There, that bird, and our old blind dog, and the tomato from your garden cut perfectly in half, our hands folded like birds waiting for the storm. It's funny where you get poems. My grandfather, when he was leaving Hickman, Kentucky, for Memphis, he was driving in like an ancient Ford with all of his possessions under the roof and the whole family in the car. He's going down the highway, and one of the high-tension wires had broken and fallen down and was flipping around on the highway, showering sparks, and the police have a line of traffic backed up until they can fix it. And my grandfather, being who he was, finally got disgusted with waiting and ran right over the high-tension wire on the way to Memphis, and the whole family screaming. Okay, that's one inspiration from this poem. The other inspiration for this poem was seeing a film in which Pentecostals did spirit dancing, and they looked like they were being electrocuted. So this poem, we can shed the comic aspects, and it actually turns out to be not comic. And the greatest of these is love. I saw the Pentecostals when the Spirit struck them, get out of their van and rush to the downed power line as it popped and sparked, snake whipping back and forth on the road between two lines of cop-stopped cars. Yes, unheeding, the spirit-struck got out and danced with the blue tongue of it, in spite of the shouts and gasps, and how they jigged harder when it bit them. And what was almost funny, but not quite, was how they jerked around all angles and elbows and cut puppet strings, their faces white-hot and God-boggled. How clumsy we are in love. How we cannot dance with it except for a short while before it forks toward farce or flight. And how magnificent when we are able to let it drift close to the water like a seagull touching down and lifting up. Yeah. 2 years ago, or actually, wait a minute, a long time ago, in 2000, I went back to Vietnam with a group of veterans who were writers and poets, and we met up with our former enemy who had become writers and poets, and we traveled from the north to the south together over a period of 2 weeks. We met the preeminent writers in the country, one of whom was Balnin, who this poem is for. Letting Go. I asked him how he could not hate us. We killed his children and left his country a sump of chemicals and upturned graves. 10 years in the jungle, hammered by 2,000-pound bombs, his job to gather his comrades' body parts into something like a hole to bury them. He said, we had the Chinese for 1,000 years, and then the French, the Japanese. You are merely the most recent. He lit a cigarette and looked out into the smoky bar. Finally, and I believed him, he said, we have nothing left to hate you with. Yeah.
Yes, it's all about you.
I've been reading the Persian poet Hafiz, who was a 14th century Sufi, and a theme that goes through all of his writing is that all of the love, even the love we screw up, especially the love we screw up, all the bad relationships, all the attempts, all of the bumbling ignorance of love, comes back to us in the end. And all of it is practice toward a greater love. And for those of us who were young in the 60s, this is pretty comforting. Yes. So, okay. Return. Hafiz, let me understand you. Even when broken by love, when you think you'll die and are afraid you won't, or even when struck silly in the first weeks before you wake to see her with the glow worn off and know that, like you, she is a stranger. Even then, or in grieving the loss of her and the long longing after, in a heaven we have not yet eyes to know, our hearts are ripening, and it will all come back to us, children that we are and will be. You know, it's kind of scary getting old and you realize love doesn't get any less intense. Yeah. It's just your cardiovascular system can't handle it as well. Yeah. Ars Poetica. Like the doe you surprise that freezes when you freeze, its tail twitching. I know that even if I move my eyes, the deer will bolt. I hold her eyes with mine. But I exhale, and the pattern on my shirt moves, and there she goes, zigging and leaping. Then she's gone in the green dark. We are nearly naked together, and you have your thigh across me, your breath on my neck. And yes, the way you tuck your toes under my calf, the way you touch me. I try not to say it, the word that will send the doe running. I try, but it comes out. That word, that terrible hot ingot of a word crouched between two pronouns. And I think this is the only way it should be said, when you can't help it. Your whole body in the word, your heart all around it like a hand. I free the word and see there where it goes bounding. I'll end with this one, The Dead. The train leaves nightly. I wave to the faces pressed against the glass. There Sandy, there Joe, there Jack. Suzanne of the cobalt blue eyes and beautiful breasts. I know them all. Bill and Newton and Bertie. Each night when they arrive, I knock on the windows and ask, "What is it like over there?" They answer, mouths moving, but I can't hear them, and so they hold up crude drawings scrawled on lined paper. An apple, a fish, a cup of coffee, a child's bright sun. The drawings come alive, the wind flattening, then caressing the grass, seagulls hunkered down and waiting for a storm, and oh, the sweet sideways light of afternoon touching and reddening yet more old brick buildings along 11th Avenue. A pear ripening and a jar of honey making a wavering pool of gold on the wooden table. I press my ear to the glass. The boarding line I'm standing in gets shorter as the world behind me fills with laughter. The train pulls away. I button my top button against the cold. Thank you.
Very
good.
Thank you.
Not every poem in here is about horses, but I want to read some that are. I've been hanging out with big horses for the last couple of years, 22 to 2,800 pound draft horses, and next to which something like a unicorn is ridiculous. They're mythic. They're mythic to hang out with them, and it's been an extraordinary experience. This poem is dedicated to them and to the absence of unicorns. Live myth. I would believe in the unicorn if it stood heaving and slathered, snapping flies off its flank with its tail. It does not smell of sweat and stable, does not snort at the wolf in the brush and twitch its ears. A unicorn does not get dirty, kick up mud when it runs. I know that I would throw my leg over a bareback horse sooner than I'd step into the stirrup of a saddled unicorn. For spite, I'd shoot and slaughter one, roast choice bits over a fire and hang its horn from my belt, just to outrage the legions of tourists of the imagination, the kind who flock to seances or invite Rasputin to tea. A unicorn is impossibly cute. It doesn't shit or rub its rump against a tree, but a horse, my God, can swing its neck around at a dog's yip and break your jaw, can brain you with a hoof. It makes the ground shake. Look at him, the black pool of his eye, muscle rippling along the flanks, and how he stands placid, chewing, as the little girl lies on top of him, braiding his mane, whispering, my magic, my magic, my boy. This is the title poem of the book. It's a little rough, meaning it's rough to listen to. It was a story told to me about a New Mexico State prison riot in 1980 by someone who was there. Horse medicine. Had them packed ass over elbow into a space meant for half as many, and the food, well, somewhere between cardboard and baby shit, TB and brother hepatitis living in the walls. So understaffed, the guards built Snitch World to enforce the unenforceable. No one inside surprised when it came down. Leastwise, the guards, beaten, broken, raped. Most inmates just wanted to survive, but the sicker, meaner motherfuckers torched through the bars of segregation cells and blew flames the pedophiles, into which blood waded the National Guard, whence black convicts and some others sought refuge among them in the yards, while psychopaths dismembered snitches with chainsaws so thoroughly that afterwards, when they did the body count, they couldn't find them all, cleaned up the blood with acid stains still there, brought in a warden smart enough to build a concrete pen, filled it with Mustangs every bit as crazy as the torch-tongued mad. Those most eaten by their demons got to work with them, feed them, I dare say, love them. And for a while something like a human village found its heartbeat and prevailed. Warden after that took away the horses and hell returned to what some righteous gas bag said hell ought to be. Well, there you are, and so are we. Yeah. Mare. Listen to me. This Percheron follows me up the slope where the others gather at the hay, and we stop to talk, or whatever it is we do. She takes this time to drop her huge head and pluck imagined bugs from my coat. I rub the long muscle just below her mane, and she folds me into her with her neck. I think how hard it is to manage love's rush, how sometimes we are slapstick with it, all hooves and teeth as big as piano keys, tongues like sides of beef. And yet sometimes we get it right, and power puts on the glove of gentleness. I would you knew this up front before I touch you, kiss you, and all that follows, that I mean my best. Take my stampeding heart and all the rest. Yeah. Yeah. Am I getting upstage here?
Doug is not as cute as Red, I have to say.
Yeah, I don't have a chance. Okay. This poem is called 70. It's 2 years old, which should give you some idea what's going on here. The epigraph is from Virgil. Death plucks my ear, says, live, I am coming. See that fox pelt, tire pummeled dry, and one red tuft wind wakened, and the way those llamas on the farm, all quick look, east, west, north, south, and then bisect the angles, nose up at some coyote's faraway funk, voles skittering through the crackling dead grass, the old red logging truck buckshot pattern on the driver's door, and me now looking through the circle made by the crane's calipers back into life at some rustling thing, that zigging rabbit, and somewhere the deep-throated bark of a shepherd surrounded by the manic yappers, some kind of glee I'm being offered, some kind of wake up and get my feet dirty, pulling me in, pulling me up this village road after my long sleep. Not Van Winkle's, I've been here all along, but what a here this is now at 70. The acolytes in black who've been putting out the candles behind me have gone on ahead. Hurry, they say. You can now count the days to death by the number of things left after you've swept out the crap. How much room there is now. The less of me, the more of everything worth loving. That star, that stone being rolled clack-thump by snow melts down the widening stream, that poem, the way that woman lifts the hair off her neck in the heat, I want to blow on it like a coal. La vida es corta pero amplia. Life is short but wide. Okay. I don't remember changing the oil, doing the dishes. Do remember when I woke up with you in the bed that was too small. Everything was new then. You, my body still forming, filling in. Don't remember washing the car, except maybe when you leaned up against the window on the other side to help, and I saw your breasts through your t-shirt in the window, and you saw me seeing and smiled, took off your shirt, pressed them bare against the soapy glass. I don't remember standing in line for my physical, but remember the first round fired at me, the whisper of it. You can't shoehorn these things into time. They create their own world around them. You can't measure it. When you think of it, you've stepped out of time. And when you return, wakened by a voice you've been away for years. I don't remember changing the tire, cleaning the rifle, but I remember I found I could see music, could see words form in fire when you spoke. You, half naked in the front seat, riding down to the ghost town at Mallory. Corta, yes. When I do the numbers, I know just where I am in the continuum that will end me. I subtract, I add. When the poet Dick Barnes was dying, he didn't get serious and start taking stock of his life, but continued to do the things that brought him pleasure, playing washboard in the little band, translating from the Spanish, loving his great-hearted wife even as he entered the final time and began the business of pissing through his pores because his kidneys failed. Do I have time to love again, to have amplia again, to watch the landscape flare around me, and the stars turn brighter against the cold? Stop time and let an island form around the moment, and when it is over, back to the 1 foot in front of the other part, the getting by. Ooh. I'm going to read one more poem. To the young studs at the gym. I saw you smirk at the light weights I use. Careful of my scar tissue and twice torn tendons, Yes, behold my ill-chosen workout clothes. Then you turn away and like cobras fan your lats at the nubiles sweating on the bikes. Go ahead, slide on another plate and crawl beneath the bar to best your buddy spotting you. I hope you make it a long way into the woods before life punks you, and it will, and more than once. And I hope you'll get up and go another round each time. But more than that, I'd like to lend you my heart to carry for a day, but I wouldn't do that, no, do that to anyone. Thank you.